From Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome local film and TV producer Matt O'Shea. Matt was born and raised in New York City and attended local schools. A high school media class sparked his interest in film production, which led to enrollment at Boston's Emerson College. Without a compass pointing into a specific medium, he wound up working almost exclusively on the production of television commercials with occasional assistance to friends who needed help making short and long format films. This career began in 1986 as a production assistant and has continued to this day, where Matt is a producer, assistant director, and unit production manager. He has been a member of the Directors Guild of America for 33 years, and many of the spots he has worked on will be familiar to millions of viewers. We are going to talk to him about his work and so much more, but first, let me welcome you, Matt, to Inwood Art Works On Air. Thank you so much for being here. Greatly
Thank you,
appreciate
Aaron.
it.
Good to be here. Appreciate it.
So I like to start off with the definition of a producer, because a definition of producer in film and TV production can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And so most of the time, those definitions don't qualify for the people who are working those positions.
Yeah.
So it's hard for people to understand, I think, who aren't in the business so much. So how would you describe to people what you do?
This is a question my parents always asked me. What do you do? And I always avoided it because it was difficult for somebody who was a lot older than me to explain. But on a television commercial, we're freelancers. 99% of us are freelancers. We get a phone call from either a production company that hires us. We're recommended to them, or there's a director who's always the main person in charge of a television commercial shoot to work on the project. So once I'm engaged, I help find the locations, help arrange the casting, help hire the crew. If there's sets to be built, I'm deeply involved with the production designer. And unlike a film or episodic TV producer, I have to engage constantly with an advertising agency. That's the big difference. I'm sure a TV producer and a film producer have to engage with the studio who's producing whatever the episodic or feature is. But I am in constant daily phone call, email, and texting contact with an ad agency producer from the minute I'm on a job until weeks after it's over.
And how much joy is it to being in charge of these people? How many times are these, 9 out of 10 times, or 10 out of 10, or 1 out of 10, tell me how many do those ad agency people actually have a good grip of the production process? Because they're coming from a different background.
They do come from a different background. They're producing too. They're taking something that was, an idea, and for their ad agency and their creatives and their marketing team and ultimately their client, they're bringing something to fruition that was nothing but an idea. So they do it over the longer stretch of time than I do. I do it from a much shorter because I'm just involved in the filming process. But I relate to them and what they're doing, and do they understand the production process? Sometimes. Sometimes they don't understand the production process. But I like to think that if I'm a good TV commercial producer, I can educate them about our process, understanding that it's changed in 20, 30 years, but it's still, at its core, we're filming something.
Yeah, going from idea to reality is it's a lot like, shooting a film or producing a play, in the sense of, like, you start off with, a skeleton essentially.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you come nearer close to that, the roadmap you've made for yourself.
Yeah.
Where did your interest in film and TV production come from?
My parents used to say when they were watching TV on a very small black and white television that as an infant and a toddler, I would pay no attention to what was on the TV until a television commercial came on. And they told me this as a kid. I don't think it really did anything specific for me, but there was this class in high school, a media class, where we had to make a commercial. And then we had to film it, and we had to edit it, and we had to mix the sound. And it was very rudimentary. The equipment was very rudimentary. The class was run by a priest. And I made a commercial for Sergio Prevente condoms, extra large. So the prop I made was a box that was about that big, and it said 10 condoms in it. And I thought I was going to get in a lot of trouble because it was a priest ran the class, but he had a good sense of humor, and he found the humor in it. And ironically, the commercials that I make tend to be on the comedy side. I don't work on big car commercials that go out into the salt flats in Utah or California shooting those things typically. So I work on a lot of comedy ads.
And how many condom commercials have you done since then?
How many comedy commercials? I haven't made many comedy commercials myself.
No, I mean condom commercials.
Condom commercials. I don't think I've ever worked on a condom commercials.
Well, you're one and done then, apparently.
Yeah, it was one and done for condom. Pet food, sure. Condoms, no.
That sets you on your path. Then.
Yeah.
But that's great, though. It's great to be able to go back there and have that kind of support. And you just go to show you never know in a liberal arts education what's going to stick.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Very cool. Well, as you were saying, you've been doing this for quite some time. And it's been a tough time in the film and television landscape over the past few years. And I mean, following the wake of COVID, there's multiple union strikes. Finding production work is a challenge on any good day of the industry.
Yeah.
So as someone who's made a career out of it, where do you see this thing standing right now?
People often ask me about how a strike or a work slowdown affects me, and I will say typically they don't, because our writers are not in the Writers Guild. They're advertising agency writers and copywriters and art directors. Actor strikes were not against TV commercials. They were against film studios. Right. We had an actors strike about 18 years ago against commercials, and it was very difficult.
That was just AFTRA.
It was SAG. It wasn't SAG-AFTRA yet. It was SAG was striking the advertisers.
Gotcha.
Because the advertisers pay the actors in my business, or the ad agencies pay the actors in my business. But I will say there's a residual that comes around that slows the business down in a natural way that I don't think people want to film when there's strikes going on, even if it's a television commercial. And I also think that it's not just strikes that affect filmmaking and production. It's election cycles. When you live in the Northeast, it can be climate. I think something like a threat of tariffs has really slowed my business down recently, because if I'm a client and I'm pushing a product, because that's all they're doing, they're just pushing product, and they don't know what their price point is in their marketing department, they're going to hold off. And they're not going to spend advertising dollars without knowing what their target audience is. So we're in a real down period right now.
I think beginning of every election cycle, I feel like, since from the election point till going through the first 100 days, they say it's a time of that you feel like the ground shifting beneath your feet, right?
Yes.
Traditionally,
and the ground is shifting
fast.
like never before. I have people constantly texting me, "What's going on? Is there any work? What are you experiencing?" I'm like, I'm experiencing being put on hold a couple times and then the job going away. That's what I'm experiencing.
Uncertainty is the big word right now. It
Big
really
time.
is. Yeah,
Big
because
time.
and the tariffs are particularly, like I say, the advertising dollars. People want to know how much their product's going to cost.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's all about the product.
it is.
Unlike a film where the film is the product,
Yeah.
or the theater is the product. It's yeah, you're pushing something else out. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that right
Yeah.
now. It's pretty rough. You mentioned something in your bio I wanted to touch because we don't talk about it very much. We talk about unions and guilds. You're a longtime member of the Directors Guild of America. You don't hear a lot about it compared to Writers Guild and IATSE and things like that, and SAG-AFTRA. So, what are the benefits for a guy or a gal to join the Directors Guild these days, being a member? Do you think it's still relevant? Would you encourage people to do it?
I would certainly encourage people to do it. I joined in 1992 because I needed health insurance. And,
It's always a relevant thing, I think.
and I and my ex-wife was pregnant, and thought, boy, oh boy, thank God she has a job. But she's going to leave that job once the baby's born, and I have to figure something out. So it's a quite a process to get into the Directors Guild. You have to accumulate days. You have to accumulate a percentage of them have to be days spent on set filming. They can't just be prep days or wrap days. You build a book, you submit it to a separate entity called the qualifications list, and they review it. And sometimes they come back to you and say, you need to add more to this. But I got in. It was the smartest thing I ever did in this business. Because now, 30 plus years later, I look at it and I say, somebody's going to give me a pension too.
How about that?
Because I didn't think about that. I thought about the health insurance. So yes, I would encourage people to join unions in commercials, in episodic, in feature filmmaking, in theater production, anything you can do. Join a union. It protects you. They've never gotten me work. Some unions actually do get you work, but they protect you. They provide you with solid health insurance, and they give you a pension when it's all said and done.
I'm a member of 3 myself, so I fully agree.
Yeah.
And it could be a really good thing. Well, thanks for touching on that because
Yeah.
we still talk. Do they still have the building on 57th Street?
They do have the building on 57th Street. They have a massive building on Sunset in L.A., a great theater in New York.
Yeah.
We take advantage of free screenings all the
Totally.
time. I saw the screening of Lincoln there quite a few years ago where Mike Nichols was interviewing Steven Spielberg after the movie. I mean,
you're
it's
not-
just,
it's
and it's free.
Yeah,
And it
'Cause
was
you're a member.
it was a magic moment.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so-
dream come true.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love that. Well, you work a lot on other people's projects. I have to come around. You have a tremendous skill set. Do you have any of your own creations on the back burner that you'd like to get done?
I do have one on the back burner that I've written a very bad sketch outline of a play that maybe I'll finish someday. But what I have in the can that's been filmed is a doc that I see it as a short, 10 to 15 minutes long, about the closing of a local pub in this neighborhood.
Okay, it's relevant.
It is very relevant, especially to this neighborhood.
Yes.
The closing of a pub in the neighborhood. Lots of interviews, lots of footage, lots of B-roll. I've got an edit decision list made. I've engaged with editors over the years, and it just, I always put it on the back burner again. So if you have an editor,
I have plenty.
let's talk.
Let's do it.
Let's talk. I think it'll be a really fun thing for the community.
Yeah.
It can be screened. There can be fundraisers built around it. It would be a dream come true because it's been sitting on hard drives for, 8 years.
Awesome. Well, let's talk off camera and
Yeah.
make it happen. For other cameras to happen, that
Yeah.
is. As one, I consider this program, it's free publicity, of course, but also, believe it or not, we have like 20,000 people either watching it or listening to it I mean, don't ask me how, but this is season 6, Matt. So
It's amazing.
we're sometimes just staying in the game. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
And we appreciate. I will say this again. We appreciate everyone locally. Like 70% of our audience is New York, of course, and particularly Northern Manhattan. But then we have like 30% that's throughout the United States, and like we're 20% in the United States, and there are 10s international. So thank you all for being interested in what we do in this little burg up here in Northern Manhattan, particularly Inwood. Do you have any advice or lessons learned for those who are trying to make a name for themselves in the commercial biz, because it doesn't get talked about so much? Is there an apprentice route? Is there like a pay your dues route these days, or is it kind of hop in and get your hands wet, get your feet wet? How's it? What would you say?
I would say that almost all the work is still who you know, which in some form, when in some of the unions, it's quite full of nepotism.
Right.
But when entry level in commercials is still sort of like who you know, and somebody saying, "Hey, my kid just graduated from Swarthmore or City College and wants to PA on a gig," which is the entry level position, production assistant, and that's still how people break into the business. It's word of mouth, who you know. There are initiatives out there in our world where we want to see more participation from women, because it's been a very white male dominated industry for years. So more hiring of women, more hiring of DEI, because that's how we keep inclusive and get more diverse in our business. And that's not going to stop no matter what kind of nonsense comes out of
We have to keep bringing
Washington.
people in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, but it is still a word of mouth business and how you get into it.
Cool. I think it's
But there are things you can do, like you can go down to the mayor's office and see what's filming, because you have to put a permit in for everything. And if you're a real go-getter, you hustle and you call, who's the location manager who signed that thing? Who's the production manager who signed that document? And there are certainly people who hustle. My first gig, besides some word of mouth things, was an ad in the Village Voice to be a stage manager. So I wasn't getting enough PA work, so I took the ad and spent a year at a stage.
Is there a particular, looking back to that and where you are now? So take away, hustle's real. Hustle
is real.
Hustle's real. You can't rest on your laurels and use your network.
Yeah.
But for you yourself, you've had this great career and you continue to do so. Is there a particular role you like to, like, when I say role to play in your industry, is it location scout? Is it the liaise with the ad agency? Like, what do you particularly enjoy? Is there a particular focus you like more than another in your work?
I do love location scouting because you really get to be a voyeur. And you see things that the average person, the average New Yorker, I don't just film in New York, I film all over the world, but scouting is a real treat, because you walk into a house that you would never imagine walking into, or you walk into the Harvard Club, or the catacombs of a church, or some of the oddest things you can imagine. We scout because we're looking for something unique, odd, or very cool. So I really do like the scouting process, but I also just like to take something away from every job. That's a joy. I learn something on every job, and I experience something new on every job. And it can be minute, or it could be like colossal, but that I find interesting to this day. Something new is I always take something away.
You have that
new.
curiosity to keep going, keep learning, right?
Wow, I can't believe that happened, and we made it out alive.
Pretty cool.
Or that broke new ground.
Well, good experiences. Very good experiences. So slight shift here from you're producing for TV and now producing for a local community here. I wanted to add you also done tremendous job producing events for the good of the benefits Inwood community, such as the Good Shepherd's Men's Club, the Social Club, and the AOH, also known as the Ancient Order of the Hibernians, for those who aren't down with the lingo. As my wife says, you have to be down with the lingo.
Yeah.
So we're similar in that respect. That we have a lot of interests, and we generally like people most days.
Yeah.
And so, what joy do you receive for using your skills to make these events successful for the community to come together?
I mean, I put my producer skills to work to pull these things off, and I think they come off successfully. What I like best is watching people have a good time, not break their wallet doing it, and giving back to the community. So with the men's club, what we do is all the proceeds go back to the Good Shepherd School. The AOH is very charitable, so I guess those are the things I take away from hosting these events. Is we show people a great time. We keep a price point low so that we try not to exclude people, and then we give back. So it's the three-pointed star.
Those are wonderful things.
Yeah.
Those are wonderful things. Well, thank you for all you do.
Yeah.
I want you to make sure you hear that. People who do things and produce things don't hear that enough. Hearing thank you is a good thing. Like our title director, Ken. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. Actually, I do feel appreciated doing it's a tremendous amount of work, but I get thanked by a lot of people, so it's heartwarming when that happens.
Well, great work, and thanks for doing what you do, and look towards more. And do you want to make a recruiting pitch for either of the memberships while you're here?
I would make a huge recruiting pitch to our club called the Good Shepherd Men's Club. Around since 1964, formed in part by the pastor of Good Shepherd Church and the principal of Good Shepherd School, saying, hey, there's a PTA here. It's run by women. What are the dads going to do? Now, granted, we have very few dads who have kids in the school anymore because the school has shrunk, but we could always use members in the Good Shepherd Men's Club to pull off the events we pull off. It's low dues. There's a dinner provided once a month, and how can you beat that?
That's a good thing, and I want to make sure that was mentioned because it is a wonderful thing. As for the three-pointed star that Matt's mentioned, and also, you don't have to be a kid doesn't have to be in the school. You don't have to be a member of the parish. Even you can be just a do-gooder who wants to do good, and there's a lot of opportunities to do good in this community. So,
yeah, there are a lot of opportunities.
So please join and get in touch with Matt. And so I want to say, where can people get in touch with you should they like to?
If they want to get in touch with me, I should have a website, but I'm really a dinosaur when it comes to those sort of things. They can get in touch with me via email, which would be oshea@me.com. So that's OSHEAMATTH@me.com. You can call me at 914-924-3355.
Wow.
Or you can reach me on Facebook, where I have a really odd Gaelic name. So I'm not even going to bother.
Don't even go for that. But we'll at least put the link to your email address into the description of this episode.
Great.
So people can get hold of you there and on screen as well.
Yes.
So thanks again. Matt, I want to say it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for all you do for the community, and let's work on that film sometime, all right?
Absolutely.
Sounds good. So thanks again to Matt O'Shea for joining me on this Artist Spotlight episode of Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upstate Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now and rate this free podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you listen to, which is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. It really does help us. Many thanks to the Church of Good Shepherd here for hosting us, and also to HeightsHeights.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air, by the way, and all of our programming making a tax-free donation to inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Artworks. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, FilmWorks Alfresco, live performances, pop-up galleries, and so much more. Inwood Artworks On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and Inwood Artworks programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.